In our third year of marriage, on the day Lou came home late reeking of disinfectant, I knew it was time for a divorce. In their previous life, the lover who had turned into a vegetable woke up on this day, their memories frozen in the year they loved the most. Chapter 1. I can't leave Kathy right after she wakes up. I'll be by her side at the hospital during this time. It was midnight when Lou returned, exhausted, from outside. The once germophobic him was now covered in the pungent smell of disinfectant. He changed his shoes and wearily lay down beside me, his tone brooking no interference. I lowered my gaze and silently watched him for a while. Instead of causing a big scene, crying and begging him not to go like in the previous life, I simply replied with a calm okay. Perhaps my composed attitude surprised Lou, as he glanced at me a few times, but he didn't say anything. I have a headache, could you massage it for me? He closed his eyes and instinctively rested his head on my lap. Naturally, he reached for my hand and placed it on his temples. Just like many times before, when he came home from work, I would attentively relieve his fatigue. Once I made him feel comfortable, Lou would praise me, saying, "Your skills are just as good as those of the professionals outside." At moments like these, I would feel a sense of accomplishment. He didn't know that I had learned this specifically for him. But this time, I didn't make any moves. Lou's eyebrows furrowed slightly. I pretended not to see and took the divorce agreement that had been prepared long ago from the side. Softly, I said, "Lou, let's get a divorce." The man who had just closed his eyes in relaxation suddenly opened them wide and sat up. He looked at me with a mix of shock and anger, saying, "Lucy, are you out of your mind? I'm not crazy, I just don't love you anymore. The Lucy who loved you had died in the car accident of the previous life." Chapter 2. When did I start liking Lou? It's been so long, I can't even remember. We were childhood friends, betrothed to each other from a young age. Before Catherine appeared, Lou and I had a good relationship. He would wait for me after school and carry my backpack for me. And when I couldn't solve a math problem, he would helplessly and indulgently say, "You're such a silly goose. Our future children will inherit your intelligence." I would pretend to be angry and ignore him. Then, to appease me, Lou would go and buy my favorite milk tea. Milk tea was truly delicious, addictive even. Just like my feelings for Lou, once it started, there was no turning back. I gave my life for it. I wonder if it was destined from the start. The first time I saw Catherine at Lou's house happened to be on my birthday. It was to the extent that later, when Lou and Catherine got together, Catherine suggested celebrating the day we met. Since then, Lou never showed up on any of my birthdays. After having dinner at my house, Lou mysteriously said he had a gift for me. I followed him home and saw Catherine in the living room. Catherine was the child of Lou's father's comrade, and after her parents passed away, she lived with her grandmother. Recently, her only relative left as well. Lou's father felt sorry for her and brought her home. At that time, I didn't know that this frail girl, who seemed like she would break with the slightest touch, would gradually infiltrate Lou's life and take him away from me. Catherine was the same age as us and transferred to our class. From then on, the two of them, who were inseparable, became three. Catherine didn't talk much, most of the time, she just listened quietly. But whenever it involved Lou, she would interject. For example, "Lou, you got the highest score in the class again. Lou, you're so good at basketball. Lou, your problem-solving skills are even clearer than the teacher's." As a girl, I could see through her intentions. I have also been filled with unease and anxiety. Lou seems to particularly dislike her, and he has complained to me more than once, "She's so coquettish, like a little green tea." Or Lucy from our family is better, silly and adorable. I remember that the sunset that day was particularly beautiful, and our shadows overlapped on the spacious playground. In my ears, Lou whispered softly. He said, "Lucy, let's be together after high school graduation." At that moment, my heart was beating fast, and when I nodded, my face blushed and couldn't be lifted. After expressing my feelings, Lou intentionally distanced himself from Catherine, but they still lived under the same roof, and that was an unchangeable fact. The signs that something was wrong were when Lou would bring up Catherine when we were alone. "She's really clumsy, she even hurts herself while cooking. Can you believe someone actually likes bitter melon? She's really hard to figure out. She cried during dinner last night, saying she missed her parents." His tone went from disdain at the beginning to concern, and then a faint smile would appear when he mentioned her. I felt uncomfortable in my heart, and I even forbade Catherine's name from being mentioned in my presence. Lou smiled and ruffled my hair, saying, "Okay, I'll listen to you, my little jealous one." We peacefully went on like this for a while. But you can't hide your feelings for someone. We would unintentionally bring up that person, just like how I would mention Lou in 9 out of 10 sentences with my friends. Just like how Lou would repeatedly mention Catherine in front of me. Unconsciously, he started calling her Kathy instead of Catherine. But most of the time, he would still call me by my name, Lucy. The explosion happened on the night of our high school graduation. That night, I had planned to confess my feelings to Lou. Catherine called, saying there was no hot water at home, and without hesitation, Lou left me and went to Catherine's house. In the pouring rain, my voice trembled as I shouted, "Lou, do you like Catherine?" Lou didn't answer, but his unwavering footsteps spoke volumes. A few days later, they announced their relationship on social media. Later, I went to another city for college because of my healing process. Before leaving, I blocked Lou and Catherine. Until one casual conversation, my mom mentioned Catherine, that girl became a vegetable after a fall. Whether she wakes up or not in the second half of her life depends on fate. Chapter 3. I had just graduated from my senior year and was doing an internship. I studied finance, and my parents asked me to come back to our family company to help out. I saw Lou again a month later. He came to my dad's company to discuss a project. Dressed sharply in a suit, he had shed the youthful innocence and appeared mature and composed. I was taken aback, nodded distantly as a form of greeting. But Lou blocked my way and said, "When are you planning to remove me from your blacklist?" The elevator was crowded, and people turned their heads to look at us. Lou had that relentless determination to achieve his goal. I had no choice but to reluctantly open my phone. Lou knew that I was working in finance, so after that day, he would frequently come to me with financial questions. He even mentioned Catherine voluntarily. We had already broken up before she fell into a coma. I pretended not to see it, ignoring him. But I couldn't deny that my heart raced at that moment. Lou had pursued me for about 6 months, relentlessly and forcefully. We ended up together. From then on, everything seemed to fall into place naturally. Before getting married, I gave Lou a chance. "Are you sure you want to marry me?" I didn't say it directly, but I think he understood. Without any hesitation, Lou lowered his head and kissed my lips. After marriage, Lou wanted me to focus on our home. So, I quit my job and worked hard to be a qualified wife. Taking care of his 3 meals a day, his daily life. When Lou had stomach issues, I learned to cook nutritious meals. When Lou couldn't sleep well, I learned massage techniques. I devoted myself wholeheartedly and received feedback from Lou. He surprised me on my birthday. He took me on trips abroad for our wedding anniversary. Countless times, I would wake up from a dream in the middle of the night and see my beloved beside me. I felt truly happy. I was so happy that I forgot there was still a Catherine between us. Chapter 4. In our 3rd year of marriage, Catherine woke up. She had amnesia, her memory stuck in the year when she and Lou were most in love. She only recognized Lou, and if she didn't see him for a moment, she would start crying and threatening to commit suicide. Lou started going to the hospital frequently. I couldn't help but doubt the authenticity of the situation. I even went to the hospital with Lou to visit her. But when Catherine saw me, she seemed greatly disturbed. She screamed, broke things. Lou explained that she couldn't accept the reality of our marriage. He asked me not to appear in front of Catherine anymore, to avoid worsening her condition. I felt unjust. "You are my husband, that's a fact. What if Catherine's amnesia never improves? Should we hide like this for the rest of our lives?" Lou's expression froze. "Just wait a little longer." I waited until I found out I was pregnant. As I walked out of the doctor's office, about to call Lou, I looked up and saw Catherine standing outside the door, staring at me with resentment. "Who allowed you to have Lou's child?" "Lucy, you're just a mistress. Give my Lou back to me." She snatched the medical report from my hand in a fit of emotional turmoil, then tore it apart. In the struggle, I bumped into the wall, scraping my elbow. "Catherine, you and Lou have already broken up." I couldn't help but blurt out the truth. Catherine's eyes turned crimson. "No, I was just angry and said those things." In that moment, Catherine suddenly realized something was wrong. But it was too late. My heart sank. You never lost your memory. After a brief moment of panic, she calmly admitted, Lucy, don't get too cocky. If I could steal Lou away from you once, I can do it again. Just wait and see. My brain was hit with a strong shock. When Lou's call came in, I told him everything. He just paused on the other end, not only disbelieving what I said but also accusing me of being petty and jealous. It was from that day on that the temperature of our relationship rapidly declined. I no longer turned a blind eye to his hospital visits. I tried to stop him, crying and begging him not to go. However, Lou remained indifferent to my pleas, and later even brought Catherine back home. The reason he gave was laughable. It will help her recover from her illness. I always thought Lou was unaware, innocent. Until I overheard his conversation with Catherine in the study. Lou, if I hadn't lost my memory, would you still take care of me? Of course. He answered unequivocally. But I felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. That night, we had a big fight. At a time like this, Lou still deluded himself by saying, Catherine is my sister. I was so angry that my stomach hurt. I couldn't stay in this house for another moment. As I walked out of the house, it was Catherine who caught up with me first. She acted like a conqueror, boasting in front of me, saying, Lucy, you can't defeat me. I lost all rationality and slapped her in the face. Lou, who arrived late, witnessed the scene. His favoritism was so blatant. Without considering the circumstances, he pushed me away and lovingly embraced Catherine. I lost my footing and stumbled onto the road. At that very moment, an out-of-control truck came towards me. I couldn't dodge it and fell into a pool of blood, along with the 3-month-old baby in my womb. Everything happened too suddenly. Before losing consciousness, I saw Lou rushing towards me, looking frantic. He screamed my name with desperation and fear written all over his face. I found it amusing. Shouldn't he be happy? After all, the only person standing in their way was now dead, and he could finally be openly with Catherine. Chapter 5. Just because I spent a day at the hospital with Catherine? Lucy, when did you become so unreasonable? I won't agree to a divorce. Lou complained between his words, blaming me for being immature. Well, it's true. After all, nothing has happened yet. Today is just the first day after Catherine woke up. In the face of his questioning, I remained indifferent. Before I could say anything, Lou's phone rang, and he answered it in front of me. We were close, and I could clearly hear Catherine's voice, tinged with tears. She said, Lou, there's thunder outside, and I'm scared. Can you come and be with me? Lou's expression instantly softened, and he gently comforted her, telling her not to be afraid, that he would come right away. I'll go out for a while. Take some time to calm down. Actually, Catherine was right. I was just Lou's second choice. Lou hurried out, forgetting to even change his shoes. As soon as the door opened, a cold wind rushed in. I tightened my clothes and got up, returning to the room. In no time, I grabbed the already packed luggage and left the house. This time, I decided to let him go, and to let myself go too. Dying for him once is enough. This lifetime, I will live for myself. Chapter 6. I stayed at a hotel for one night. I returned home the next morning. My parents were shocked to see me coming back with a suitcase. They exchanged a glance, their expressions grave. What happened? Did Lou bully you? They asked anxiously. Facing their urgent questions, I remained silent and threw myself into my mother's arms, feeling utterly helpless. Seeing this, my father immediately exploded, saying, if this guy dares to bully my daughter, he's asking for trouble. He was about to call Lou right then and there. Fortunately, I quickly stopped him. I sniffled and wiped away my tears, my gaze unusually serious. I'm preparing to divorce Lou. Don't ask me anything, and don't try to convince me otherwise. I just want to take some time to rest. Returning to the familiar room, I lay down on the soft bed. Only then did my anxious heart finally relax completely. I slept soundly, feeling a sense of relief. Until the evening, my mother knocked on the door and entered. Lucy, Lou is here. Get ready and come out. During my sleep, Lou had called me several times. I glanced at the time and saw that the earliest call was made an hour ago. Chapter 7. The atmosphere in the living room was strangely eerie. Lou sat upright, facing my parents. No one spoke until I appeared, and all three pairs of eyes turned to look at me. Lou reached out to pull me closer. "Lucy, why didn't you tell me that you were going to your parents' house?" I was worried. Worried? If I remember correctly, it has been almost 20 hours since I left home. I calmly avoided his hand. I sat next to my parents. I looked at him indifferently and asked, "What brings you here?" Lou's hand froze in midair, and his smile almost faltered. He awkwardly withdrew his hand and quickly adjusted his expression. Softly, he coaxed me, "All right, stop being angry. Let's talk about it when we get home." It seemed like he didn't take my words seriously yesterday. So, I emphasized once again, "Lou, I'm serious about getting a divorce. Also, I've already submitted the divorce registration online. Once the 30-day cooling-off period is over, we'll go and get the divorce certificate." Seeing my firm tone, with no room for compromise, Lou finally regained his composure. His sleeve was lightly tugged. My mother interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. "Lucy, let's talk things through calmly instead of constantly bringing up divorce. What exactly happened?" My father, who had been sitting silently beside me all this time, also spoke up. With a serious expression, he looked at Lou with an unfriendly gaze. In our previous life, when Lou and I were together, my father was the first to oppose it. He was afraid that I would be hurt again. Little did he know that his words would come true. In the end, the person who would bring an end to my life would be the man I loved since childhood. Thinking about this, an indescribable anger surged within my chest. I clenched my fist, and when I looked at Lou again, my emotions were no longer calm. Faced with my father's questioning, Lou tried to downplay the situation. He said, "Catherine woke up, and I went to the hospital to see her twice." Lucy was a little upset. Indeed, it was twice. 12 hours each time. Before I could even explode in anger, my father stood up and berated Lou, accusing him of being unappreciative while having his eyes on someone else. In the end, the situation escalated and ended on a sour note. Lou left in a disheveled state, almost being chased out by my father. Chapter 8. My father may be angry, but as parents, no one wants their children to get divorced unless it's absolutely necessary. Besides, Lou hasn't done anything fundamentally wrong at the moment. My mother mentioned a few things, intentionally or unintentionally. "Lucy, you've liked Lou since you were young, and it wasn't easy for the two of you to come together. In these 3 years of marriage, weren't you both happy? Are you really willing to give up and let him be with Catherine?" I was momentarily speechless. My heart felt heavy and ached. In the previous life, I was unwilling to let go, which is why I held on to that loveless marriage even after countless arguments. But what was the result? I bitterly bit my lip. Unconsciously, my hand caressed my belly. If Lou hadn't come to pursue me in the first place, if he hadn't let me taste the sweetness of happiness, would I have ended up with a different outcome when everything happened? But there are no ifs. I put down my chopsticks, suppressed the melancholy emotions, and opened my phone, searching for some photos. "Take a look at this first." I handed the phone to both of them. After Lou left last time, I had someone watching Catherine's side 24/7. Mainly because I wasn't sure if Lou would obediently go with me to file for divorce after the 30-day period. Unexpectedly, the detective agency had some unexpected findings. In the evening, when I went downstairs to walk the dog in the neighborhood, I bumped into Lou, who had come to find me. What bad luck. I turned around to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. Reluctantly stopping, I looked at him indifferently, meeting his gaze. Exhaustion was evident on Lou's face, with dark circles under his eyes. It seemed like Catherine had been giving him a hard time these past few days. I struggled forcefully but couldn't break free. Lou rubbed his temples in frustration. "Lucy, enough is enough. My patience has its limits. Go upstairs and let our parents know. Come back with me later. I haven't had breakfast for days without you, and there's no one to wash the clothes I changed out of." His words both directly and indirectly blamed me for being unreasonable. It seems that I was really too good to him before, which allowed him to speak so confidently. I stared at him intently. Lou, when you pursued me and married me, was it because I was a suitable wife who you could easily control due to my mild and accommodating personality? Lou's pupils contracted slightly, probably because I had guessed right. He became somewhat annoyed and embarrassed. Lucy, are you out of your mind? How did you become so heartless? Catherine lost her memory. Can't anyone see beyond me? Can't you try to put yourself in her shoes? You weren't like this before. I laughed. What was I like before? Obedient, understanding, revolving everything around you, like a nanny who loved you wholeheartedly? For a brief moment, I even wondered if Lou had truly loved me. The answer I received was no. He had always seen me as nothing more than a nanny. All the kindness he showed me was just a form of charity after he had taken care of himself. I didn't want to say another word to him. It was too disgusting. I struggled forcefully. Let go of me. Perhaps due to a pang of conscience, Lou's attitude was not as stubborn as before, and his tone softened. If you don't like it, I'll try to visit Catherine less in the future. It's none of my concern. Must we get a divorce? Yes, if you don't agree, it doesn't matter. I will file for it. You. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. I let Cola bite him directly. Lou winced in pain in his leg and finally let go. With my newfound freedom, I took a step back, creating distance between us. Lou, amnesia is not your excuse. The fact that you were kissing her in the hospital is truly sickening. Besides, did she really lose her memory? Lou narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Some things are better left unsaid. I believe Lou will investigate them himself. Chapter 9. English, Lou is faster than I imagined. He called me from a new, unfamiliar number. The moment I picked up and heard his voice, I wanted to hang up. Mayday misses you a lot. Come back and see it. Mayday is a little cat I rescued. At the time of my rebirth, it was sick and hospitalized at the veterinary hospital. I forgot about it during this busy divorce period. Unexpectedly, Lou used the cat to threaten me, just to force me to meet him. I cursed through the phone, how despicable. Lou doesn't like cats, and I'm not sure what crazy thing he might do. I rushed home with a pounding heart. But I found someone squatting at Lou's doorstep. Perhaps hearing footsteps, the woman curled up on the ground suddenly looked up. The surprise on her face turned into hatred when she saw me. It was Catherine. One of the people who killed me in my past life. I took a deep breath, another one, barely restraining the urge to tear her apart. In this life, I just want to live well. I don't want to be entangled with these rotten people anymore. I shook the keys in my hand and said, move aside. Lucy, did you say something to Lou? Why doesn't he come to see me or answer my calls? She was wearing a hospital gown, with messy hair draped over her shoulders, and her aggressive appearance made her look like a clown. Hearing her words, I was slightly surprised inside, but I didn't show it on my face. I sneered coldly, go ask him yourself. This seemed to touch a sore spot for Catherine. Her face twisted. You're the one talking about divorce. Why are you here? Lucy, get lost and never appear in front of Lou again. You're just a thief, stealing my life. Now that I'm awake, Lou can only belong to me. A thief? I won't take this baseless accusation. She may have Lou's favor, but I won't back down. First, your coma wasn't caused by me. Second, Lou pursued me and married me. Third, we're still not divorced, so your meddling behavior makes you the other woman. I spoke bluntly and mercilessly, and Lucy's face began to crack little by little. Lastly, I wish you success and take care of yourself. Don't let him bother me again. In this lifetime, the two of you can be locked together. Don't harm others anymore. I said it sincerely. But Catherine seemed provoked. She lunged at me with a ferocious expression. Before her hand could touch my clothes, Lou, who had come out from inside, pushed her away. He had quite some strength, and Catherine took a few steps back before regaining her balance. Lou protected me as if I were a treasure. He angrily reprimanded Catherine, who allowed you to touch her. Chapter 10. I passively hid behind Lou, feeling a bit confused. Has Lou taken the wrong medication? In my past life, every time I woke up from Catherine, countless times I had to choose between the two, he would always stand firmly by Catherine's side. But today, he actually protected me? I don't understand, and I am greatly shocked. Catherine is equally shocked. She looked at Lou, biting her lip in distress, tears streaming down her face. We were so in love, how could you hurt me for another woman? Lou turned his head and glanced at me, saying, she's not another woman, she's my wife. Then what am I? Catherine's face was covered in tears, her voice filled with despair and sadness. Why would you treat me like this? Why did you let me wake up? Everything has changed, everyone is moving forward, and I'm the only one left behind. Catherine cried uncontrollably. I couldn't be bothered to watch their performance. I turned around and went inside the house. Seeing my former lover in such pain before me, I thought Lou would be somewhat moved. However, his reaction once again exceeded my imagination. It could almost be described as indifference. Don't pretend anymore, you never lost your memory in the first place. Catherine, let go of the past, don't cling to it anymore. You go back to the hospital first, I've already informed our parents, and they will be returning to their home country in a few days. I stopped in my tracks. In my previous life, I tried my best to interfere, and in return, they became even more ruthless. Starting over, I decided to fulfill their desires, and now Lou seems to have awakened on his own. I shook my head with a sigh. What a scumbag, they're all despicable. Chapter 11. I just finished organizing the things for the May Day holiday, lifting the suitcase and a hand reached out from the side, holding onto my hand. Can we not go? The voice was unusually gentle. Without hesitation, I replied, Lou, we're not possible anymore. The 5 fingers holding my hand gradually tightened. Lou suppressed his emotions and asked, why? What happened at the hospital last time was purely accidental. You don't like Catherine, and I promised you that you don't have to see her. I can make it up to you for what happened before. Those were 2 lives, Lou, what can you do to make up for that? I remained silent, lowering my gaze and engaging in a silent struggle with his hand. Lou has always had limited patience with me. Now, seeing me unyielding, his temper began to flare. He forcefully snatched the suitcase from my hand and shook it vigorously, scaring Mayday inside to meow in fear. What do you want from me? Lou doesn't like cats, and he never pays attention to a cat's emotions. I saw Mayday hunching in the corner of the suitcase, and anger surged within me. I raised my head abruptly, stared at him directly, and said word by word, I want you to stay away from me, Lou. I don't want to see you for the rest of my life. Perhaps he had never seen me lose my temper before, let alone look at him with such hateful eyes. The blood drained from Lou's face, his body swayed, his grip on the suitcase weakened, and it fell to the ground, colliding with the marble, producing a piercing sound. Mayday was frightened. I didn't care about anything else, forcefully pushing Lou away and embracing the suitcase in my arms. Before leaving, I glanced at him one last time and said, Lou, don't make me hate you. Lou snapped out of his daze, standing there at a loss. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something. But I didn't want to hear his voice anymore, so I walked away without looking back. Chapter 12. After that day, Lou quieted down for a while. I returned to work at my father's company. As usual, I went to the office, and as soon as I entered the lobby, I saw Lou holding a large bouquet of roses waiting there. I ignored him and kept walking. Lou chased after me and said urgently, Lucy, happy birthday. It was during working hours, with people coming and going. The bouquet of roses in Lou's hands was big and eye-catching. It attracted the attention of many colleagues who stopped to watch. I had no choice but to stop and turn around. Lou probably thought that his affection had touched me. A relaxed smile appeared on his face as he walked up to me and handed me the flowers, saying, I arranged them myself, they are champagne roses that you like. I lowered my gaze and silently stared at the somewhat messy bouquet of roses for a while. Then, in his hopeful eyes, I reached out and took them. Lou's joy was evident, and he couldn't wait to say, I've also made a reservation at your favorite seafood restaurant for tonight. I'll pick you up after work. The security guard arrived late, dispersing the onlookers and standing between me and Lou. He raised his hand to dismiss the crowd, saying, Sir, the CEO has given orders that you cannot appear in our company. My father is quite protective of his daughter. After seeing the photo of Lou and Catherine kissing last time, he gave instructions to the security guard and also terminated several collaborations with Lou's company. A year ago, Lou's father's eye condition recurred, and he went abroad for treatment, leaving the company in Lou's hands. His abilities were not on par with his father's, and he struggled in the company. It was my father who supported him, allowing him to gradually establish a foothold. And this termination of collaboration dealt a big blow to Lou. In my previous life, he took advantage of my liking for him and was arrogant. In this life, I have discarded him like an old shoe. Yet, he is trying every possible way to please me. Lou didn't move. He was looking at me, waiting for my response. Although the security guard had orders, he didn't dare to act rashly. Everyone looked at me. In the gaze of the crowd, I walked step by step towards the trash bin by the entrance, holding the bouquet of roses. Without hesitation, I let go of them. "This is my response," I said, looking at him. "Lou, you are just like this discarded rose in my heart." Through the crowd, I saw Lou's face turned pale, his eyes wounded. I calmly shifted my gaze away and signaled the security guard. Lou was escorted out. "Passing by me," he said, "my mother has returned to the country, she wants to see you." At this moment, I tried to maintain a calm expression on my face, but I couldn't remain indifferent in my heart. In my previous life, my in-laws treated me extremely well. Even when Lou and Catherine started dating, they were the first ones to oppose it. They made a huge fuss about it. After university, Catherine encountered many outstanding guys and began to grow tired of Lou. Every time they argued, she would threaten to break up. Eventually, Lou got tired of it and agreed. Catherine played around outside and then wanted to come back, even resorting to desperate measures. The result was a tragic accident where she fell from the second floor. It was extremely terrifying. These were all things my mother-in-law told me later. The whole day, I felt restless. In the end, I still couldn't make up my mind to go and meet them. Chapter 13. My father noticed that I wasn't in a good mood and gave me a few days off to go out and take a break. On the day I was leaving to catch my flight, as soon as I opened the door, I saw my mother-in-law pacing back and forth in the hallway, holding her hand. Our eyes met, and there was a brief moment of awkwardness. "Lucy, are you going on a trip?" she asked, forcing a smile. The once close relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law now felt distant and cautious at every encounter. A bittersweet feeling spread in my chest. I stepped aside and said, "Mom, why didn't you let me know in advance? Come in quickly." "I won't come in," my mother-in-law waved her hand, looking ashamed. "I can't face your parents." I wanted to say that this was between Lou and me, and it had nothing to do with them, so she shouldn't feel guilty. But as the words reached my lips, I found it difficult to say them out loud. Marriage is a matter involving two families. With the current state of affairs between me and Lou, how could there not be any resentment between the elders? "Mom, do you have something to tell me?" I asked, as my mother-in-law wiped away a tear, seemingly remembering the purpose of her visit. She looked at me with gentle eyes and said, "Lucy, I didn't come here to reconcile. When we got married, I told you that if you were unhappy, you could leave at any time. Marriage is for happiness, and divorce is too. Now that Lou doesn't appreciate you, and with the entanglement with Catherine, I know you have suffered, and I support you in leaving. As for the division of property, you are the victim and deserve to take the majority. You don't need to worry about that." Tears rolled down uncontrollably from my eyes, and I interrupted her, "I'm not after the money, especially since Dad is overseas receiving medical treatment, and we need money for everything." My mother-in-law shook her head. "You not being after it shows your kindness. If we didn't give it to you, we would have an uneasy conscience." Tears blurred my vision, and I choked up several times, unable to speak. In my previous life, I was afraid of worrying my parents, so I never mentioned a word about Lou and Catherine. Unexpectedly, in this life, they still worried about me. "Silly child, don't cry," my mother-in-law gave me a hug. "Mom just wants you to be happy in the future. I came back this time to apologize to you in person." She straightened my body with her hands. "All right, I've said what I needed to say. Your father's condition isn't good, and I need to go back immediately. Although you two have separated, I will always be your mother. If you have the chance, come visit us overseas." I nodded heavily. "Please give my regards to Dad." I watched my mother-in-law enter the elevator, and after standing there for a while to calm my emotions, I lowered my head to pick up my luggage. From the corner of my eye, I saw my parents, who appeared behind me without me noticing. My father's eyes were red, his face heavy, and my mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Chapter 14. I went to Yunnan. Wandering around, eating and drinking. It seems like I can temporarily forget some of my worries. I came back home the day before the divorce. That night, I removed Lou from my blacklist and sent him a text message, "Meet me at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." I waited for an hour, thinking that he might regret it. Finally, I received his reply, "Okay." I breathed a sigh of relief and had a good night's sleep. The next day, I arrived on time at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Lou arrived almost at the same time as me. Seeing him, I picked up my pace, wanting to resolve things quickly. After walking a few steps, I realized that Lou wasn't following me. My heart skipped a beat. Could he be causing trouble again? I furrowed my brows and turned back, meeting Lou's gaze head-on. I hadn't looked closely before, but in just a short amount of time, Lou looked much more haggard. The usually image-conscious him had a scruffy beard and his tie was disheveled. A hint of struggle flashed in his eyes as he said, "Is there really no chance for us?" Since the moment of my rebirth, I had been waiting for this day. The procedures went smoothly, and soon I held the freshly printed divorce certificate in my hands. As I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I genuinely smiled from the depths of my heart. A month later, I received several million in cash that Lou had transferred to me, along with agreements for the transfer of several properties. A year later, Lou's father passed away. Our whole family attended the funeral. It was the first time I saw Lou since the divorce. I had heard some news about his situation. Without my father's support in business, he had been worn out by those directors who were ruthless and wouldn't let go of their piece of flesh. The company's situation had also declined significantly. His work was already difficult, and to make matters worse, he got entangled with Catherine. Catherine had a drug overdose before graduating from university. Although she had woken up now, she had no job prospects. So Lou became her last straw before drowning. But the more she tried to hold on, the more he grew tired of her. Catherine had her most violent outburst again, repeating her past actions and threatening to jump off the rooftop of Lou's company. She thought that even if Lou was heartless, he wouldn't let her die. But this time, she lost the bet. Lou didn't show up at all. Catherine, feeling disheartened, completely lost her sanity. She told Lou that she had figured things out and wouldn't bother him anymore. She wanted to see him one last time. Lou believed her, but this time it almost cost him his life. Catherine entered Lou's office and took out a knife she had hidden in her bag. She laughed maniacally, saying, "If I can't have you, then I'll ruin you." In the struggle, Lou was injured on his face, leaving behind a fierce scar. And Catherine was sentenced to 10 years for attempted murder. After paying respects to Lou's father, I had a brief conversation with Lou's mother. As I left, passing by Lou, he hesitated to say something, wanting to reach out for my hand but not daring to. Finally, after 1,000 words, it condensed into one sentence, "Are you doing well?" I didn't look at him, nor did I speak. We passed by each other. In my heart, I silently replied, "Every day without you is a sunny day."